Well, I'm going to spend 15 minutes or so sort of talking about email, the secret weapon. Flock is one of my latest companies. I'll talk about it a bit during the presentation, but I really want to share with you guys statistics and lessons we've learned in working with various hosting partners and registrars with Flock. I think Jeff mentioned that he was embarrassed to carry last year's iPhone. Well, as an industry, we're selling last decade's email. We should be even more embarrassed. And so hopefully we can all over time change that. And really, this is an area and a topic that I'm quite passionate about. So hopefully we'll be able to give you guys a ton of value as we go through this presentation. So quick background about myself. I've been in the industry. I love our hosting and domain name registration industry because every time you try to get out, it kind of sucks you back in. And God knows I've tried a bunch of times, but I used to run Reseller Club, Big Rock, Logic Boxes, webhosting.info for a better part of my life, more than a decade, about 14 to 16 years. And until we eventually exited that company to Endurance in 2014. And then parallelly, I started Radix and then Flock and so on and so forth, and currently operate and own 3 different companies. So Radix, some of you or all of you should be familiar with. We actually own some of the most premium top-level extensions in the world. So we own .store, .online, .tech, .website, .site, .space, and a bunch of others that many of you folks are actually helping us sell. Recently, actually 2 months ago, we just crossed 5 million domains. So that was a pretty amazing milestone. I have an amazing team of people that some of you guys have probably met in various conferences that actually runs the show. So I really don't take much credit for it these days. Flock is, in many ways, we're directly competing with G Suite, Office, in the communication collaboration space, and I'll introduce you to some parts of it as I take you through kind of our experiences in working with the space in the industry. And with Flock, we've built this amazing suite that we actually partner with hosting companies and registrars to take to your respective customers. And so we'll, again, talk about that a little bit as we run through the presentation. And then Zeta is into digital payments. It's another company that I co-founded along with a gentleman called Ramki in 2015. We actually recently raised a Series C at a $300 million valuation just about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And so this is what keeps me busy and excites it's exciting work that I sort of constantly do. So Flock's business suite comprises of a bunch of products: email, contacts, calendar, video conferencing, voice calling, and instant messaging, basically, right? And so really, let me launch into this presentation, as I said, and share with you guys some statistics and details on what we think about this space. Is that, I said this is sort of a part of my sort of abstract in the presentation, that in many ways, I've run a hosting company for, as I said, 16 years, sold pretty much everything. So we actually started out by building our own control panel. This is before cPanel, before pretty much control panels existed. We built our own Linux and Windows control panel. We used to sell hosting on that. We've sold hosting on, I don't know if anybody remembers those blue-colored Cobalt boxes back in the day. So sold hosting on that, resold hosting through Alabanza, and then sort of eventually cPanel, Plask. We've pretty much done it all, right? And invariably throughout that journey, especially in like the late sort of after 2010, et cetera, I really started getting interested in communication, collaboration, et cetera. Because I figured that the thing that I love about this industry and about our business is that every one of us has the opportunity to really be at the genesis of every business idea in the world, right? When somebody comes up with a new idea, a new project, new company, what do? They come and register a domain name, potentially get some sort of web space, put up their idea or business out there, take the risks that entrepreneurs generally do, and if things work out, they hire more employees, they grow, and we're actually there at the very genesis of that process. And it's amazing that we can then actually participate in that journey by providing them various services, by providing them various tools and technology that will enable that journey for them. And what struck me throughout this process is that many of these products that we sell, a large majority of the kind of products that we sell or resell, et cetera, end up focused on, so whether it's a website or digital certificate or domain name for the business itself, but we've not really taken as much time and focus and attention to really create an amazing service portfolio for the employees as the company grows, for the individuals in the organization. And so email and communication started fascinating me from that point in time. And I really realized that if we do this in the right way, if we truly, and it was my frustration back then because the only options available at that point in time, which still are there today, were some of these sort of legacy email solutions that are out there, or legacy collaboration solutions. But I was like, if we can do this right, there's a far higher opportunity in terms of margins, revenue, customer engagement, branding, and customer satisfaction to be had from our customers if we get email right, in terms of revenue, profitability, et cetera, right? And just a sort of simple, quick calculation would show this, that a typical hosting plan, a shared hosting plan, would sell at whatever, $30 to $90, sort of average at about $60 per year. Email packages will typically average, $24 per annum per account, so say $2 per email account per annum. But then when you multiply that by the average number of email accounts and hosting package, this is all pretty simple and straightforward, right? There's a higher amount of revenue to be made off of email. But then it just doesn't stop at email. These organizations and these micro SMBs and solopreneurs and self-employed professionals, when they grow out their business, we have the opportunity to sell them sort of collaboration tools like video calling, which again retails at $72 to $120 per user per annum. Drive, which could again be another $60 to $70 for a 3-member teams per annum. Messenger, so Flock actually also has an inbuilt instant messenger for the organization, which again has the opportunity to sort of make about $360 per annum for a 5-member team. And suddenly it starts stacking up when you partake in the journey, in the digital transformation journey of an organization, the individuals in the organization, the revenue starts stacking up. And so that's really what I want to focus on in terms of how do we best leverage this. And I think one of the things that we've fundamentally, even though we've had the opportunity to be the genesis of all these millions and millions, hundreds of millions of domains and websites around the world, we haven't actually as an industry been really good about leveraging that opportunity. In some ways, have actually in some cases even handed it over to the sort of giants like Google, Microsoft, and others who are in many ways leveraging the same customer base that started their journey with all of us. And so let me talk about the lessons that we've learned in kind of leveraging this opportunity and the focus that we've spent on this for the last several years, and specifically more so because we launched the suite at CloudFest earlier. And so how we sort of work with various partners to leverage this opportunity. Well, we really started thinking about the fact that if you look at the industry, we haven't focused on offering a meaningful solution that essentially increases. We started focusing on 2 numbers, which is we want to increase 4 numbers, sorry. We want to increase email attach rates. So everybody who buys a domain name or a hosting package want to make sure that they actually also buy email and attach email from the industry. Want to increase email usage rates. So, a lot of people create a professional email account, but we've found, and we'll share some data with you in terms of actual customer conversations, as to why is there so much resistance in terms of people actually using these professional email accounts. In many ways, by the way, this is another thing that's sort of annoying for me since a long time, is that honestly speaking, in this day and age, Gmail addresses and Hotmail addresses and Yahoo addresses should die. There's really a domain name costs $10 or lesser, even if you will. How many of us are going to walk around, this planet in some sense and say, hey, my name is Bhavin Turakhia 0799 at gmail.com. That's my identity for life. Why do we have numbers and underscores and hyphens and strange characters and combinations of stuff in our email addresses? There's no scarcity for names. And the fact that domain names and email accounts are available at a low enough cost and for employed professionals around the world represent a tinier cost than Starbucks coffee, there's really no reason why some of this competition should exist in terms of the kind of identities that all of us carry. But there is an inertia for individuals in going through the process. Imagine how hard is it today to get we all take this stuff for granted, but how hard is it to actually get an email account, a professional email account? If I am whatever, Bhavin Turakhia 99 at gmail.com, I have to first buy a domain name, then potentially buy an email service either from the same provider or somebody else, then figure out this complex thing called MX records and set them somewhere, then create an email account from some control panel, and then figure out some client in which I have to set my IMAP or POP settings with some SSL, TLS stuff and servers and usernames and passwords. By the time I get to that end point, it's just not worth it. And then I have to think about migration, communication, changing my identity, like nobody has made this process simple enough for people to be able to really get a meaningful identity in the world. And it just amazes me that all of us as an industry haven't really focused on solving for this problem, right? So that's the area that I got really passionate about and said that, well, we need to fix this. So again, increase upgrade rates, increase brand recall. Those are the kind of, motions we want to work on. So I want to take you guys through each of these, and we've done a lot of, I'm a, extremely kind of data-driven analytical guy. So is my team. We've done a lot of data gathering. I'll share small slivers of it with you folks today. When we used to run webhosting.info, we used to sort of parse every single domain name and website in the world. We've done the same kind of analysis for email, for many, many millions of domain names in the world. And so what we did is, we sort of started looking at email attach rates. And these are some of the partners that we work with. And some of you guys, you do this on a daily basis. You probably see this in your customer set also. So this is a hosting company that we work with in Turkey. For every 100 cPanel packages, shared hosting packages they sell, only 26 of those packages create an email account in the first 2 weeks. So here's a person, look at the hurdles that they've crossed, right? They've bought a domain name, they've bought a hosting plan, they've paid for all this stuff, they've set it up, right? In spite of that, 1/4 of them actually go about and create a professional email address, which, by the way, is available free within that package, within that plan. And we saw these numbers over and over again. This is another global domain registrar. For every, again, 100 cPanel packages they sold, only 35 of them actually attached email. The usage rates, by the way, plummet after this, and I'll talk about that in the next section. But we're talking about individuals who've paid money, who've got a package, who've got everything almost ready for them, and still don't go about creating their email account. Domain to email attach rates are even worse. For every 100 people that buy a domain name, we typically see about 10 to 12 people attach an email account, and less than between 2 to 5 of those actually attach it with the person they bought the domain name from. The rest of them will buy email from a G Suite or Zoho or a, Office or, Rackspace or Fastmail or Proton or some other provider, right? So we're talking about 100 people who bought a domain name. And it's interesting, we actually conducted a survey and we asked these people, we asked random registrants, both when I was running a registrar along with our partners with sort of, the registrants that they have, that, well, you bought a domain name, what do you buy it for? Do you want a website? Do you want email? Do you want both? Do you want, what did you buy it for? And over 50% said that they would love actually getting a professional email address. So out of every 100 people who are buying a domain name, 50 of them 53 point something, want a email account, but less than 10 actually end up getting them, and less than 5 or less than 3 actually end up getting them from you guys. And so there's a massive chasm, there's a massive drop, like something doesn't fit. And if you really start thinking about it, there's tons of issues here. The first issue is product quality. Our mail products, and this is what we've heard from customers, are not as good as even the free email that people use. Like if I'm using a Gmail account and I pay $60 for a hosting plan and I create an email account and I land up in, whatever, Horde, Squirrel Mail, Roundcube, all the kind of flavors of email that we provide, and I find that this paid email product doesn't look as good or feel as good or has all the capabilities and bells and whistles that I'm used to since 2004, 2005. Like, basic things like threaded conversations, basic UX, cross, platform compatibility. Like if there's basic stuff that's not available, why would somebody opt for a paid product that's worse than a free product, right? I mean, this is what people are used to, and this is what we end up providing them. And it's embarrassing as an industry. I mean, we did this, I've actually done this with all the hosting partners. Let me do this sort of a quick poll out here. How many people here in the audience, by a show of hands, use cPanel's email and Roundcube or whichever sort of client it comes with as your primary default email client? Just sort of show of hands up, right? There's about 5 or 6 people. And to me, this is an embarrassing status of the industry. How can we sell a product to our customers that we don't want to use ourselves? This is ridiculous. For the last 15 years, this is what we've been doing. We've been selling a product to our customer base, expecting them to use it, them to attach it, them to upgrade it, pay us for it, that we're too embarrassed to use ourselves. Like, it just makes no logical sense. And we've done nothing to change that status quo for 15 plus years. This is data again. So we actually collated every single domain name that had cPanel on it in the year 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. So we sort of compiled this entire list. and did a MX record check on every one of those domains for every one of those years. Just kind of went through the life cycle of that domain name from the day it was registered all the way till sort of 3 years later. And we found this across the board, and you'll again see this in your data if you sort of pull it out. Every year, between 2 to 4% of cPanel domains migrate their email to a more reliable, better UX, a better provider. This is just lost opportunity. These are customers who've already signed up with you. They're already paying you, but between 2 to 3.5% of them are actually migrating out their email. They might still continue their website or domain name or whatever it is with you, but they're migrating out their email over to a better provider who, by the way, incidentally, as far as today's prices goes, probably making more money on those 3.5% customers than you are on the balanced 97% customers on just providing them a better quality product. And so this is a clear, sign in terms of the fact that customers are willing to pay a premium for a better product. They want a better product. Email is the lifeblood of many organizations, email and communication collaboration. And so, we decided to solve for product quality. And with Flock, I won't get into too much detail, but we created a really beautiful product that works on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Mac, Windows, Linux, and iOS and Android, all native clients, nothing sort of, ported over, etc. So native iOS, native Android, native offline clients for Mac, Windows, and Linux, and browser-based clients for Chrome, Firefox, Safari for, calendar, email, contacts, etc., and a bunch of other stuff, video calling and things like that. And just, from a UX standpoint, we've taken great pains predominantly to try and solve for this problem, which is that when the customer experiences their professional paid email for the first time, they should look at it and be like, oh, this is actually better than the free email that I'm using, not this is substantially worse, and therefore, should I even make that shift? The second thing that we need to solve for as an industry is product reliability. This whole model of shared hosting, it works perfectly well, and it has been for the longest period of time. But if you think about it from an email standpoint, we actually offer a fairly unreliable experience, right? Zero redundancy. Our servers, typically the server goes down and it's got 15 different services on it. We all know about it. There's a bunch of different, issues that could happen on a shared web hosting server. So if it goes down, you basically got all your email down. And incidentally, I don't know, I've sort of seen this as, I've fielded support calls back in the day, just like all of us have throughout the journey of our running these hosting companies, etc. Funny enough, somebody's website goes down, they might figure it out, might not figure it out, stuff goes back up, and things are okay. Somebody's email goes down, you have hell to pay. Yeah, we've seen all those customer calls, people threatening that you're, killing their business, you're destroying their lives, and, they'll probably get divorced if this thing doesn't go back up. Email is literally, in fact, for most hosting partners that we worked with, email actually happens to be a substantial, if not the larger part of their support costs. And when we're competing, if you look at, our product or G Suite or Office, it's all N+3 or higher redundancy. So we're competing with a product which is way, way more reliable, much better uptime, 5 nines or 4 9 plus uptime, significantly better data durability. All of the stuff that Flock or G Suite or Office provide, etc., has got 100% data durability, no chance of sort of data loss, etc. Enterprise-grade security, SOC 2 compliance, ISO 27001, like all of this stuff is what the default is. And for the last, as I said, 10, 15 years, what we've been selling has none of this stuff. Poor abuse prevention. All of us, again, IP reputation is such a massive issue for everybody. And it's not really a economical model for every single small, mid-sized, large hosting company to staff up their own abuse desk and try and maintain IP reputation for every single cPanel server that they have or Ples server that they have. And we don't do that great a job as an industry in terms of outbound, inbound abuse prevention. And sort of IP reputation management. So, the front end is worse off in comparison to sort of competing products out there. The back end is worse off, and we've done nothing to solve for it. Obviously, we're not going to be able to leverage this opportunity if we don't solve for it in a meaningful way. The third thing that I've always been thinking about, or always wondering why we've never done this, is sort of the attachment at purchase time. And this is something that I don't know why as an industry, again, we've started doing this with all of our partners, and we've seen some amazing results. When you buy a domain name, and you buy a hosting package, an email plan, or whatever not, you can't start using the website part of it right away. Like you got to create content, you got to create images, brochureware, whatever. Like you have to set up your website. It might take you a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. It'll take you some amount of time. But you can actually start using your email pretty much right away. The moment I buy a domain name, I can actually start using my email then and there. There's nothing preventing me from doing that. But why is it that as an industry, we create this process where after the purchase process is over, there's an email that comes into my inbox. Then I click on it to land inside some bizarre control panel that has like 15 other upsells of products. Then I have to click on set up my email, which goes and configures my MX records. Then I go and create an email account. Then it sends me another email on how to configure my mail clients, which by itself you need a PhD to understand. And then after that, I actually configure some email client. And then there's 6 or 7 steps along the way before we actually get to using the email service, right? I'll show you kind of a flow that we've worked with on, both domain attach and hosting attach. Think of it as a generic hosting company. You've got like your, plan selection out here. The user selects a hosting plan, puts in his credit card information, and pays for it. As soon as the user pays for it, on the very next screen, we basically say, okay, your order is completed. Why don't you set up your professional email account? And we pre-fill his first name. We pre-fill a password. And on one click of that button, the next page, you land into the webmail. So you bought a product, and you can use it right now. I went to a car dealership, I bought a car, and I drive out with it. As opposed to buy a product and then wait, X number of days and X instructions and emails later to actually start using that product. And so this is, again, something we recommend in terms of sort of purchase flow. Let's really start getting people to not just buy these products, but immediately start using them as soon as possible. And we've seen this, make a significant impact, by the way, some of those stats that I showed you before. So this is, the case study of the global registrar that we work with. When they weren't working with us and they were using their standard flows and their standard email and the sort of product they were selling before, they were seeing an attach rate of 35%. That number has doubled. This is live data, actual data, has doubled to 70%. So now in the first 15 days, for every 100 cPanel plans they sell, 70 of them actually create an email account then and there because of all of the sort of product quality, product reliability, purchase flow. Same with the other case study. Again, double the attach rates. And actually, there's room to go higher. So we're now in a place where those numbers, the 70% is actually going to be at 85% in the next 6 to 8 weeks with some of the other experiments that we're running around nurturing and a bunch of other stuff that we're doing as a part of the process. But really, as I said, the goal is if you bought a domain name, there's really no frigging reason you shouldn't be creating an email account. So if you're not, there's a problem somewhere, not with you, but with us as an industry, with our processes, and we need to fix that. And we need to basically make sure that the customers go through that journey, right? Then we started focusing on usage. Here's where actually the data got even more depressing for the industry as a whole. And we found that for every 100 people that basically create an email account, so this is after they've done all these stuff and the email's attached, they've created a full-fledged professional email account, Bhavin at widgeting.com as opposed to Bhavin Turakhia 99 at gmail.com. So I've already created the email account. And it's an abysmal situation. So 80 of those 100 actually do log in. They'll log into their webmail or their whatever client, email client, etc. Only 22 of them send a first email in the first 14 days. That's like a 1/5 drop-off. So I've got these guys now past the first 5 barrier doors, and suddenly they've already created their professional email account, and 22 of them actually end up sending their first email. And the 8th and 16th week retention numbers are pretty poor in general across the industry. We managed to get those numbers up because of product quality, but even for us, those numbers were, even for our product, those numbers were pretty low. And we started, again, doing some digging. So we talked to a lot of customers saying, hey, you've got a pretty lousy sounding email address, rpkelly05 at gmail.com. You've got a great email address here that you've paid for. It's a good product. Professional identity. Why haven't you started using it? And the reasons came pouring. We have a list of about 30 to 40 different challenges that different people face when they want to first start using a professional email address. And really, again, nobody's actually understood these reasons at the absolute kind of, the absolute level in terms of understanding what the problems are and then creating solutions for them. So I won't take you through all of them, but there are a few obvious ones that, they're obvious in hindsight, that we've started fixing now. And the first one that we found was email address autocomplete. Now, this is a situation that 100% of your customers go through, right? So they've got a Gmail account they've been using for the last 2 years, and sending an email to to people that say I'm sending an email to Jeff, whatever, right? And I buy this professional email account from my hosting company, and I log into it after all the kind of hurdles that I've finally crossed, whether it's Roundcube, whether it's Flock. Yeah, I log into that account, I hit the compose button, and then I don't know Jeff's email address. Like, we've been emailing for the last 2 years. We haven't, but assume that we had. I don't still remember his email address. Like, is it first name dot last name, first initial dot last? Like, I have no idea what combination to use for his email address. So what do I do next? I open Gmail. I click compose there because I have his email address there, and I never come back to the purchased, paid for professional email account that I bought from the hosting company. It affects 100%. In fact, this is the second highest cause for drop off at that email usage point. And so we started thinking about, well, we need to fix this. And so we created this contextual import contacts utility. So in Flockmail, you click compose, you put your cursor in the to box, it's going to pop up this tiny little widget that says, are you unable to see your contacts? Well, why don't you import them from Gmail, Outlook, or whatever it is that you've been using? So the very first time you land in this interface and you see none of your contacts, in one click through an OAuth API, now we can easily solve for that problem and reduce this friction that's causing roughly about 20 to 25% of the drop-off at that point, right? So there's many, many such tiny things that people find are hurdles when they actually try to use this product that they're buying from you or they're buying from us as an industry, and they're unable to. Another one was this whole notion of multiple mailboxes. So the problem again is that, well, I now have two mailboxes. So I have, Bhavin at widgeting.com and I have Bhavin Turakhia at gmail.com. So, and I'm getting email on both places, right? Because, all the individuals that I was communicating with aren't going to suddenly wake up one day and figure out that my identity's changed. And so now I have to maintain two webmail interfaces or two clients at all points in time and like juggle between them. And if I get email at one place, I reply from there, then I'm going to continue the conversation there. And so it starts becoming a, quagmire of sorts. And so again, to handle this sort of multiple identity scenario, we actually have started building a unified mailbox inside our mail client. So unlike your standard kind of cPanel mail offering, our mail offering will comprise, this is in the works, but will comprise of you being able to actually configure all of your mailboxes in one single client. And so you don't have to kind of juggle. And then if you get an email on your Gmail account, you can reply from your newly, mint fresh kind of professional email ID, and you can start that migration process easily. So anyways, the idea of showcasing these two examples was not specifically about these two examples, but just to showcase the fact that our customers have real problems that none of us have actually spent time to understand and solve for, which is the reason why we're seeing the kind of drop-off and the kind of, low revenue and the low attach rates and the low usage rates that we see in the industry. The third number that we're focusing on is upgrade rates. We want this customer to start their journey with, a bunch of email accounts and just calendar contacts. How do we get them up the journey in terms of let's buy, video conferencing? Now I have a team of 5 people. Let's buy, instant messenger for my organization. Let's buy, email sequencing and marketing tool. How do we get them to go through that journey? And actually, the opportunity is huge, by the way. I'll talk about this in the branding piece. But people spend 3 hours a day on an average inside an email client. And if we own that real estate, we have the opportunity to be able to then upsell services and capabilities by showcasing them in freemium models or different ways, right? And this is where the first problem is. So we actually found this, it says, again, actual numbers from partners who were selling email-only plans on their website. As of today, in the email plans that we sell, the only reason for a customer to upgrade to a newer plan or a higher plan is if they run out of disk space. And most people don't, given the amount of disk space that we provide anyways. And so typical numbers of upgrade on email-only plans tend to be less than 1 or 2%. So you might have 100 email plans and less than 1 or 2% of your clients are actually on a higher plan. And there's a bunch of issues and reasons for this. The first issue is upgrade path visibility, which is that if your user is not within a canvas that you control, then how do you showcase them capabilities to enable an upgrade? If they're not inside of an interface where you have the opportunity to upsell stuff, how do you actually do that, right? Less than 20%, in most cases 10% of your users are actually using your pre-bundled webmail, and a vast majority of them are lost to iOS Mail or Thunderbird or Outlook client or Mac Mail or some local client. And so they're spending their entire life inside that client, and you have no opportunity to show them an upgrade hook or send them some upsell stuff or show them some advanced capabilities like video calling or anything else that the product might have to offer. So it's no surprise that we as an industry have abysmal upgrade rates in comparison to like a G Suite or an Office or any of these products which have the opportunity to keep these users within that ecosystem. And, so for solving for visibility, this is a, hard decision that we took with a substantial amount of investment. In fact, unlike even G Suite, we actually invested in building a dedicated Flock client for every single platform. So we have our own iOS client, our own Android client, our own Mac, Windows, and Linux offline native clients, and our own browser-based Chrome, Firefox, and Safari clients. And as a result of that, we've seen that what used to be about 10 to 15%, so 10 to 15% of the users end up using the pre-bundled webmail that comes with a cPanel or Plesk or what have you. In our case, that number is already upwards of 57% and is growing. So more than half of our users are spending those 3 hours every day inside our client. And now we have the opportunity to say, hey, why don't you try our video calling product for the next 30 days? Why don't you try our email sequencing product or advanced CRM features and capabilities to be able to actually take them through that upgrade path? And I strongly believe in this notion of progressive upgrades, which is the other thing that I think in some ways some of the industry is not doing rightly, including some of our competitors like G Suite and Office, which is, most of these solopreneurs, like our audience is typically these micro SMBs, solopreneurs. As I said, we're at the genesis of their idea, at the start of their journey. And at that point in time, they're not ready to, they paid, $10, $20 for their domain name. They want to spend another $70 or $150 or $200 to buy a collaboration suite that comes with 20 different softwares, most of which they don't need, right? When you look at an Office suite or a G Suite or whatever. And so I strongly believe in this. In fact, we can learn about this philosophy from video games, right? If Candy Crush was sold for $10 a pop, they would have made far lesser money than the scenario where they give it to you for free, and then you start playing it, and then eventually you find you've probably spent, your children's education fund on that game. Because they're progressively taking you through this upgrade path where they're going to hook you in, and step by step, they're introducing newer and newer concepts, and you're basically buying it at that point in time, contextually when you need it. And so there's a huge opportunity. You can start out with email at like $1 to $2, but then progressively take that company, that customer, that self-employed professional, that solopreneur, that end user through that journey of buying, whether it's video calling or Messenger or Drive. And so that's the philosophy that we support. And we believe that through that progressive upgrade path, you can actually end up making more revenue and have a more satisfied customer because you're not shoving down 20 products they don't need down their throat on day one, and you end up kind of expanding on your revenue base. The last point I want to talk about, and in many ways, I think this is the most important point, actually. And one of the biggest threats to our industry, actually, is because we've kind of literally given the sort of entire field away on this piece, is the brand recall piece, right? Which is, we as an industry do not value brand engagement as much as it actually should be valued. As a hosting provider, we're kind of content in remaining in the background and providing a basic service to our customer base. But if you think about it, an average user spends less than 20 minutes in a year, if at all, in their cPanel or Plesk control panel, but they spend 950 hours inside a collaboration suite. It's a massive, massive difference. You're talking about more than a 2,000x difference in comparison, right? Like if I put that up in a pie chart, I mean, you won't even be able to see the sliver of the amount of time that's spent inside, interfaces that we provide versus the amount of time that our users spend on interfaces that are not provided by us, right? They're spending them inside an Outlook and seeing Outlook's brand. They're spending them inside G Suite and seeing G Suite's brand. They're spending them inside, Apple Mail, Thunderbird, Mac, iOS apps and Android apps. They're spending this time on a product that you're providing, but not seeing your brand anywhere. And so with Flock, we have kind of a co-branding program in general where we kind of put this brand out there front and center. But I really don't think people understand the value of your users for free seeing your brand for 1,000 hours a year versus 20 minutes a year. every single year. You cannot put a price on this. You cannot realize the true value. And that's the reason why, by the way, they don't think of us or don't think of, our industry. When they're thinking of brands, they're thinking of, Google and Yahoo and Microsoft, because that's the brand they see day in and day out for several hours a day. And we've kind of given that whole field away. And so I'll kind of conclude my presentation, which is that there are clear opportunities in this industry to make a substantial difference with a better quality product to email attach rates, with sort of focusing on reducing usage friction to sort of email usage rates, with gaining higher visibility, and with progressive upgrades on kind of upgrade rates, and creating our brand as the hero brand for the customers that we win, that we spend time and effort and affiliate dollars and pain to acquire, to be able to make sure that they have our brand recall at top of mind, by ensuring sort of that our brand is the hero brand, basically. And it's about time that as an industry that we stop selling the same stuff that we were selling. Forget last year's iPhone, as I was saying before, that we stopped selling the email that we used to sell 10 or 15 years ago. There's not much that has changed. It's pretty much the same. Low reliability, low redundancy, poor user experience, stuff that we as an audience are too embarrassed to use ourselves. It's really about time that we stop selling this stuff to our customers and really provide them products that they truly deserve, that make sense. Our customers deserve better than what we're providing. And this will really make a massive difference. I still continue to fundamentally believe that as an industry, we can actually make a higher amount of revenue from a good collaboration communication suite than we make on our shared hosting and domain names in terms of net margins. And that kind of concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions if you guys have any. Thank you.